We're going over System Concepts, Article 42, Time Tagged. We are going through a transition of wisdom. Knowledge that was once sought after and shared within a select minority of the world's population is becoming a worldwide phenomenon, where even the general populace is ready and willing to receive the long-hidden truths about the purpose of humankind's existence. The desire expressed by past authors who have written shallow content as well as their consumers who paid for it reveals this current transition. Although this superficial content had limited applicable value to its readers, it had served as a prerequisite for humanity. It was preparation for understanding quality content. This is similar to the development of an individual's discernments that grow from being shallow to having depth within them. And here's a quote. For a long time now, my conscience has burdened me with the demand to come out and create a fundamental composition regarding the essence of Judaism, religion, and the wisdom of Kabbalah, and spread it among the nation, so people will come to know and properly understand these exalted matters in their true meaning. Previously in Israel, prior to the development of the printing industry, there were no fallacious books among us relating to the essence of Judaism, as there were almost no writers who could not stand behind their words for the simple reason that in most cases, an irresponsible person is not famous. Therefore, if by chance one dared to write such a composition, no scribe would copy it, as he would not be paid for his labor, which for the most part was quite considerable. Thus, such a composition was doomed from the start to be lost. From the article Time to Act by Bala Sulam. The combination of costly text publication and the low desire of the general masses for consuming such shallow content kept the spread of the wisdom of perception to a minimum. This was because humanity had only developed on the survival, still, money, vegetative, and honor, animal level of desires. The need, and therefore the desire of perception, speaking, had not yet surfaced. Here's a quote. In those days, knowledgeable people, too, had no interest in writing such books, since the populace did not need that knowledge. Quite the contrary, they had an interest in hiding it in secret chambers for the reason that it is the glory of God to conceal a thing. We were commanded to conceal the essence of the Torah and the work from those who did not need it, or were unworthy of it, to not degrade it by displaying it in shop windows for the lusting eyes of the boasting, because thus the glory of God demands. From the article Time to Act by Bala Sulam. The knowledge of the structure of perception was hidden from the masses due to their undeveloped reality. Reality needed to reach global technological maturity before shifting to development of perception. If it was released prematurely to undeveloped individuals, it would not have served the advancement of the human race. Since the recent past, this wisdom knowledge of Kabbalah might have been expressed as just another trivial method to finding the meaning of life. However, the reality is that it has an unmistakably deeper and darker side to it. Precisely due to this, the knowledge was concealed. This knowledge of a governing system is not a creator who needs to be guarded. It is the source of an individual's internal power. And the Kabbalists understood this, not wanting to expose its amazing force before the world was ready for it. However, today, humanity's level of development is revealing a need, and therefore the most opportune timing for the development of expression of internal power. This worldwide need and resulting desire for this knowledge will usher in advantages that could bring humankind to new levels of development. And here's a quote. But ever since the printing of books has become popular and writers are no longer in need of scribes, the price of books. But ever since the printing of books has become popular and the writers are no longer in need of scribes, the price of books has been reduced. This has paved the way for irresponsible writers to publish whatever books they please, for money or for glory, but they do not take their own actions into account and do not examine the consequences of their work. From that time on, publications of the aforementioned kind have significantly increased, without any learning or reception mouth to mouth from a qualified Rav, and even without knowledge of earlier books that dealt with this topic. Such writers fabricate theories of their own empty shells and relate their words to the most exalted matters, to thus portray the essence of the nation and its fabulous treasure. As fools, they know not how to be scrupulous, nor have they a way by which to learn it. They instill faulty views to generations, and in return for their petty lusts, they sin and make the nation sin for generations to come. from the article Time to Act by Balasulam. This sin of shallow works was part of our development, and although these works were initially shallow, they didn't permit serious study by the masses. This period of continued human development allowed for the building of a huge printing infrastructure. This new infrastructure, which enabled the Kabbalists to be able to release their books at a cheaper production cost, fostered the development of the world's spiritual evolution, unconscious of the God of creation. And here's a quote. Recently, their stench has soared upward because they have plunged their nails into the wisdom of Kabbalah, not minding that this wisdom has been locked and chained behind 1,000 doors to this day, that no person may understand the true meaning of even a single word of it, much less the connection between one word and the next. That is because in all the genuine books that were written to this day, there are but clues that barely suffice for a knowledgeable disciple to understand the true meaning, from the mouth of a wise and qualified Kabbalist sage. And there too the arrow snake make her nest and lay and hatch and brood under her shadow. These days such conspirators multiply, make such delights that disgust those who behold them. Some of them even go as far as to presume and to assume the place of the leaders of the generation, and they pretend to know the difference between ancient books and tell which of them is worthy of study and which is not, since it's filled with fallacies, and they arouse contempt and wrath. Until today, the work of scrutiny had been limited to 1 in 10 leaders of a generation, and now the ignorant abuse it. From the article Time to Act by Balasulam. By cheapening this knowledge, it allowed it to be made widely available through the masses, without the fear and trepidation that was associated with it in previous generations. This preparation was necessary for this generation in order to develop humanity to a level of need and true desire to witness the unveiling of the secrets of the wisdom. And here's a quote. Therefore, the perception of these matters by the public has been greatly corrupted. In addition, there is an atmosphere of frivolity. People think that a glance at one's leisure is sufficient for the study of such exalted matters. They skim of the ocean of the wisdom and the essence of Judaism in a glance, like that angel, and draw conclusions based on their own mood. These are the reasons that have prompted me to go out of my way and decide that it is time to do for the Lord and salvage what can still be salvaged. Thus, I have taken upon myself to reveal some of the true essence which relates to the above matter and spread it among the nation. From the article Time to Act by Balasulam. Without the perception of concealment that people have been accustomed to, the correct perception could not have been revealed to the nation. This is the concept of darkness comes before the light. The sign of awareness of darkness is always a sign that the light is ready to be revealed. When we feel that we are surrounded with feelings of inadequacy, darkness, this is the sign that we are ready to grow towards revealing our internal power, light, the inner force that drives all of humanity. And here's the first question. Why is this generation ready for spiritual growth? Cedric.
We have developed the desire to spirituality, and that has made us work on our discernments.
Jeffrey.
Yes, as Cedric says, the desire has now grown. Humans have matured enough that we now have the technological infrastructure, the internet and Facebook that'll facilitate this greatly. Thank you.
Mark.
Well, it's pretty much what Cedric and Jeffrey just said. Two things have happened. Mankind has matured to the point that our egos are big enough to want to know more, to want to know beyond the basics. So we do want to know where our life is headed and why we're in this and what's the meaning of life. And then there is this huge infrastructure that allows this information to be disseminated. Thank you.
Moshe.
Yeah, well, again, it's our desires have quadrupled and increased to incredible heights, and we want more than just what we see. We want more than just sort of money, power, knowledge, etc. We find that even if we have those things, it's not enough. So we have greater desire for something else. And this is the time that we're actually desiring more control and more power over our life and over our experience. And this is why this generation is fit for the wisdom of Kabbalah.
Rick?
This is the last generation. This has been 6,000 years of work bringing us to this state. We have finally developed our egotistical desires to the point of where they are ready to fill our kleisen so that we are at that point of where we need to transition. This is the days of the Messiah. So again, it's going back. It's the cycle is coming together into one fixed singularity, a point focus, and we're just a little ahead of the game here. But it's coming for everyone, and I don't know if society has matured much, but they sure are a hell of a lot more egotistical.
Robin?
Yeah, I agree with everything that's been said. I see it too as which has been said, this huge desire. I mean, people have grown up with instant gratification, all this stuff so quickly. It's cultivated a desire to heights that hasn't been around before, and so and also seeing there's a huge appetite for fantasy in entertainment, and it's bigger than I've ever seen it before. And I think that shows that there is a desire for something beyond corporeal life. There's a yearning for something beyond that.
I also feel that the reason this generation is ready is because we finally have a language that we can actually convey the spiritual matters. Beforehand, people didn't know what the word perception is. They didn't understand what subconscious was, conscious, all these words that we're able to now sort of like do a translation from the sort of high root level language of Kabbalah. We're able to now explain them in like daily words of understanding of thoughts, emotions, and how subconscious works and locks. And we're able to explain them in such detail, but actually allow people to understand, and therefore they can advance and so forth, as we've seen. It just shows how we've reached such a level of egoism that we can actually understand these very subtle concepts. If you would have said to someone 100 years ago that you would able to have all your books in one place, they'd be like, well, what do you mean? You probably need libraries. It's like, no, it's a little device. And in there, I've got all my books. It's like they couldn't even fathom that concept. And today we can definitely talk about those concepts, like in spirituality, everything's a copy, and there's no concept of moving. And people can understand that. Like in computers, where you're constantly moving, even when you move a file, it's actually copying the file and then deleting the original one, which is just copying new information on it. So the idea is that people can slowly understand more and more spiritual concepts that in the past that was just impossible to explain to anyone in a real way without them just going on a fantasy trip. Second question: why is the concealment a prerequisite for revelation? Cedric.
It would seem that this would look for the ones that are ready, and for those that aren't ready will go after the information that they need to grow.
Jeffrey.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with Cedric there. It was preparation. There was a need to wait for the evolution of both society, people, and technology. And as you were just saying a minute ago, it's now we're better able to understand this, and you, with the knowledge, are better able to put it into more succinct terms. So it seems like everything's coming together at this juncture that we're at here now. Thank you.
Mark.
I think the concealment is necessary because it keeps the unworthy away from the knowledge. shallow or the people that want to use it for nefarious purposes. It's the concealment, unless you have a true desire and you want to stick with the sources and study this, you're not going to pick any of this up. So the concealment was a preparation for people actually being able to read and understand and use this information that's in Kabbalah. Thank you.
Moshe.
Well, I would say it's to build a desire for something you might not even know exists. And also a bit of a filter to weed out the people that really don't have that desire at all. I mean, if it was readily available to everybody, you wouldn't really know who had the true desire or not. So I think it's also a way to separate a bit and really sort of give it to those that are ready for it. And then eventually more and more of it will be revealed and more people will have access to it. But it's more of like a triangle that goes from, up downwards.
Rick.
I feel the concealment is done for the simple purpose of that by not knowing and finding these revelations as we go along, we actually take what we reveal, we attain, we make it our own. We feel like it is our effort that brought it forth. We feel like it then is part of who we are and not just something that is a piece of knowledge that was given to us.
Robin.
I think the concealment created a vacant space that where desire could grow.
Concealment is actually what makes us grow. Like when something's revealed to you, that actually stagnates growth. And we can see this where, if you look at the Eastern societies and religions, they actually talk a lot about perception. And because they talk about perception and they don't have that concealment, they stay where they are. But if you look at the Western countries, where they're actually in concealment, then they sort of don't deal with the perception as much, and they focus more on reality and making stuff and innovating and in making a new iPod or a new phone and making buildings and all this stuff. That is the concealment. That when they do get the wisdom of perception, they're able to use them simultaneously and actually innovate and grow with it. While if the wisdom of perception was just given to the Eastern religions, which they mostly are dealing with, they have no structure of technology. They have no reality to actually do expression on. Their reality is very minuscule, very small. So even if they had the power of perception, they don't have a reality to actually even affect. So the concealment of hiding the wisdom and allowing people to first focus on reality and innovating there has reached the point now where, because there's just major innovation and first world countries that exist which have that concealment, then the wisdom can now be disseminated and given, and then it will slowly flow down to the lower levels as well. The third question: how do we avoid being shallow when learning together? Cedric.
I think that the group has a same interest that we can share, and that allows to have quality information or discernments or thoughts that can be shared, and then we can I don't know. I think that getting together with the group make us focus on the knowledge or understanding that we want to get.
Jeffrey.
Well, for me, it's like the inspiration I get from the group and my desire to give as the best that I've got to give. So I dig a little deeper, think about it a little bit longer, and it's all due to the stimulus of the group. Thank you.
Mark.
Well, it's just like Cedric and Jeffrey just said, it's the environment. we've all come together with for one reason, because we had a desire to know, we had perhaps a goal in mind, and together in this environment, nothing's accepted. Everything's you can be critical of everything, because that increases the knowledge and brings us deeper. It expands what we know, but it's only possible within this environment, within a group.
Moshe.
Well, simply, we're here to advance, and we're here to add details to our advancement, and we're not here for, physical support. I mean, yes, we can give it, but that's not really the goal itself. The goal is to advance, and we're here to add details to each other by basically workshopping and going through our different views and different perceptions, and those are the details within that.
Rick.
I agree. We got to come out of our comfort zones. We need to take and look within ourselves and see what we actually attain from reading and understanding it, share it, and see what it is when others look at it, and, objectively, comment on what we're sharing, so that we can see who we truly are, what we're actually perceiving, where our state of awareness is. And by doing this, it gives us the ability to advance and move on and dig deeper and have a greater understanding.
Robin.
Well, I think we're learning profound things that have been kept in concealment. I mean, this is a first, and I think by keeping a reverence for that and really keeping that in mind as we learn together will keep us from falling into being shallow about it or taking it for granted. I mean, it is really a profound development, and that we're very privileged to be a part of.
One of the ways to avoid being shallow is by wanting to teach the material. Like when you're listening and absorbing information, what normally happens is you absorb a very shallow layer of it. So it doesn't really matter how much is shared with you. You'll only catch a certain very little amount, very shallow layer. And to allow you to able to actually understand it and go deeper, you need to have someone you're teaching. You have to need someone you're passing it on to. And then you actually need a desire to actually know the depth and detail, so that if your student asks you a question, you can actually answer them and not say, oh, wait, I'll get back to you. So what I've noticed is that people that don't teach others, then they stay with that very shallow understanding. But those that teach others, they get deeper and deeper in their understanding, because they need to know more to be able to explain it to others.
It's okay, though, to be, in a spot where you don't know the answer, but I think that's a great sort of benefit of having somebody you're teaching, right? Because you're going to be faced with questions you're not really sure of the answer of that, and that's sort of the benefit of sort of the relationship between a teacher and a student is learning and the teacher is learning, so it's like win-win,
And the idea is that so you've got two options. If you learn beforehand enough, then you'll actually have all the answers for the student. And if not, then the student will ask a question, and then you'll have to find the answer. So either way, you're going to get the depth required. Just the question is, are you going to do it before or after work? But to able to go deep into something without someone you're trying to convey the information to, I would say is impossible, because you don't expand. Let's say you're understanding something, you're like, oh, I get it. And you work with it, that's fine. But can you explain this now to somebody else? Can you explain the details and the intricacies and all the depth and nuances? That can only be if you have someone you actually need to teach, and then you need to sort of envelop yourself in the material.
Yeah, I'm finding that happens with me with the individuals I'm trying to help, and also doing SE chat. I'll try to answer a question like Slito.
Exactly.
I felt it was a shallow, superficial answer, and I saw you read it. I was hoping you'd chime in too.
But you can see how like that process of trying to help somebody else, it actually helps yourself, and that's the goal. The goal is always to help yourself, and then by using others and using the deficiencies, you can actually help yourself and learn more about yourself.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, it's all about me.
Exactly. What do you all think of the article?
Superb. I mean,
never thought.
I remember the Time to Act. I'd read this before. It made me think of David Icke. Are you familiar with him, the English guy? About the shape-shifting reptilians. He takes the ayahuasca, and he's convinced the Torah is worthless, that it should be done away with, right? He's a big guy in England, David Icke.
No clue.
He's outrageous. The Queen is a shape-shifting reptilian. They do human sacrifices and stuff. He's got massive following worldwide. And it's exactly a kind of person the Baal HaSalam was speaking of, the shallow, superficial, but he thinks he's got the depth of the ocean. He certainly has a huge ego.
Well, it's actually a small ego. That's the funny thing is.
Yeah, but he has a huge fan base worldwide. I thought he was a little bit dangerous in this because he's extremely anti-Israel, anti-Zionist, anti-Torah.
Well, you've got many anti-people. It's like, it just makes them dangerous like anybody else that sort of has an opinion and has some kind of external power to that opinion. But from a spiritual perspective, it's negligent.
Yeah, Mark, he has been, yeah. Well, that's great, that Coast to Coast. So it's on AM radio late at night, like after midnight, for a lot of people. It's about alien abductions, it's all the strange cryptozoology, all the really strange stuff. Comes on, of course, in the wee hours of the morning on the AM radios. Hi, Maria.
So just to kind of get an idea of this article, like what the sort of the main principle to take out of it to convey that you were trying to convey with this is what time to act, meaning that this is the generation of that it's the time to act. This is the last generation. This is, yeah.
Exactly. Like we're ready for this. Mm-hmm. And Balasaram said it about his generation, and I would say it's even more so about ours. And as it continues, it's just getting better and better. Many times people like ask me, like maybe I should limit or filter out information for people. But this is the generation where you don't have to do that anymore. People do that by themselves. Think of it like you've got the Google search engine. Person could search about anything they want. And in the end, what do they search about? A bit of news, a bit of politics, a bit of fun and games. That's it. It's like, why isn't everyone becoming a biology professor? It's like all the information is out there. It's like, it just turns out just because you have the information doesn't mean you'll read it. It doesn't mean you'll actually understand it.
All sorts of scientific, academic education classes.
Right, but no one cares because they don't have the desire for it.
Right.
So the idea is that I don't feel that I need to limit anything in SC because people do the filter themselves. People find the articles or the issues they want to deal with. And so it actually makes sense to actually provide more information than less, to allow people to sort of find the thing that talks to them. Some people like the system concept articles. Some people, are liking the Pticha more. The idea is that to allow the people access to a wide variety of different implementations, and then people can choose what they want to use to advance.
And people now are like, I think this is perfect because people are me, and they would want internal power.
Well, the thing is that not everyone
want to put the effort in to attain it, though.
Exactly, which means that they don't actually want it. If someone's not willing to put the effort in it doesn't mean they want it.
Right.
I think this is a really good article, and the reason I like it is because it gives us kind of a brief history of where this knowledge came from, why it wasn't readily available in the past, why today is the time, and we are in the generation that can use this. And a lot of it has to do with technology and the availability of cheap print. And now we have the internet. And it's a very concise article that gives us a brief history of where this came from, or why this wasn't distributed in the past, and why today and now is the time.
I never thought that knowledge would be away because of lacking desire. And I'm wondering now how technology can be play a good part on spreading information, knowledge, even spirituality. And it came to my mind if technology itself could be a medium or a source for spirituality.
Well, that's exactly what we're doing here in System Concepts, right? We're using, internet tools. We're using YouTube. We're using Google Docs, Google Sheets. I use Dropbox to upload the sessions as well. So we're using all these different technologies, and they are the medium that contains the concepts. And then the person takes the concepts, the spiritual concepts, and applies them into their life, and applies them on their advancement and their states. Any other thoughts on the article?
The only thing I got out of it was how how this generation is the last generation, then the generation of the Messiah. That it's like we have come to the point of the preparation of our 6,000 years of travel. And that we were in concealment so that we could take and attain what we got from the wisdom, rather than just reading it and knowing and having knowledge. It's actually more than that. At least to me, it seems that when you attain something, you don't think about it. It just is. It's just the way you feel about it, the way it is expressed through yourself. That's what I feel like attainment is, and that's what it talked to me about.
Robin, what do you think?
I was just thinking about what I think, and I keep going back to your answer of the last question, which is how do you avoid being shallow, and that's by teaching others. And that's in essence what Baha Salam was writing in the article, that it not only was he able to now, the world had come to a place where it was physically and spiritually ready for it, but he was doing it. And that really is what I get out of it.
I think it's it's designed to be a very basic article. Like you're not going to start going to like spiritual concepts and stuff. What do you think, Maria?
I think that sometimes even within ourselves, we weren't receptive to the same content or the same sensations, maybe in the previous state. So, I mean, we've all encountered the situation where we've read something and we read it again, and there are new, like, oh, now I know what he meant by that, or, we gain different sensations or understanding as we progress as well. So you can make everything available, but it may be that person, even if it's told outrightly, even if let's say system concepts is bluntly, someone lays it out bluntly, look, this is what you're going to get. They may go through them and they may not get what we're trying to get across. And the same thing for our own person. Like I can read a systems concept article and I'm like, there's so much here, and I see someone else within the group and they may not have the same thing, or maybe they got more than I did, whatever the case may be. But I think that whoever is, if the desire is there, they will attract them to themselves, whatever level of understanding they can currently attract to themselves.
I was thinking at some point to remove like the set of articles that we're going to go over because they're sort of more informational and less dealing with the the spiritual concepts themselves. But the group basically convinced me that that information helped them as well. It gives them some kind of like backing. It's like wanting to know who is Bala Sulam and stuff. It's like who do you care? Just advance. It's like you also want to understand some backstory, and it gives a bit more confidence to the validity of the method. So it's definitely understandable, and that's why we're basically going over it as well.
I think that these articles are very sort of, more informational. These are more like prerequisite sort of material that can be, taught, So, if you want to learn advancement, this is not the right one, but it's more like a prerequisite, more like a general overview. And, a lot of people have that. So I think it's okay to have that,
I agree. It's like a welcome. Did you know sort of article? I think it sort of melds into the like melting pot of the system concept articles that cover like all different scenarios and situations. So it's just another slice in that pie.
Sometimes when these articles seem more informational than spiritual, you got to remember the people that are coming into the group from phase 2 and stuff, or anyone reading from phase 1. They're not very spiritual at all. They're just looking for information. And this sort of, feeds that deficiency.
Exactly. I think we'll stop here and enter the after party.